Good morning and welcome to Farm Factor on AGam in Kansas. I'm your host, Conrad Kabus. Today's show is a wide variety of topics. First up, with his birthday close by, we discuss George Washington Carver's success and Kansas background. Then we discuss Kansas State apps for farmers, agricultural advocacy through blogs, and a special message from Pat Roberts. Stay tuned.
Closed captioning brought to you by Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, Progress, powered by Kansas farmers. This segment is brought to you by Kansas Wheat. Learn more at rediscoverwheat.org.
Good morning and welcome to Farm Factor on AGam in Kansas. I'm your host, Conrad Kabus. George Washington Carver was born January 5th and was an American scientist, botanist, and inventor. We celebrate his birthday and his achievements on today's segment. Take a look. George Washington Carver was born into slavery in Diamond, Missouri around 1864 and went on to become one of the most prominent scientists and inventors of his time. Carver devised over 100 products using peanut technology, including dyes, plastics, and gasoline. Botanist and inventor George Washington Carver was one of many children born to Mary and Giles, an enslaved couple owned by Moses Carver. The conclusion of the Civil War in 1865 brought the end of slavery in Missouri. Moses Carver and his wife, Susan, decided to keep George and his brother James at their home after that time. Raising and educating the two boys, Susan Carver taught George to read and write, since no local school would accept blacks at the time. Carver attended a series of schools after receiving his diploma from Minneapolis High School in Minneapolis, Kansas. Accepted to Highland College in Highland, Kansas, Carver was then denied admittance once college administrators learned of his race. Instead of attending classes, he homesteaded a claim where he conducted biological experiments and compiled geological collections. He wanted to help poor farmers to grow alternative crops both as a source of their own food and a source of other products to improve theirs. The most popular of his 44 practical bulletins for farmers contain 105 food recipes using peanuts. He also developed and promoted 100 products made from peanuts that were useful for house and farm, including cosmetics, dyes, paints, plastics, gasoline, and nitroglycerin. He accepted numerous honors for his work, including one from the NAACP. Carver's legacy remained after his death. Carver established the George Washington Carver Foundation with the aim of supporting future agricultural research. In 1943, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt dedicated $30,000 for a monument west of Diamond, Missouri, the site of the plantation where Carver lived as a child. This was the first national monument dedicated to an African American. The 210-acre complex includes a statue of Carver, as well as a nature trail, museum, and cemetery. In Kansas, George Washington Carver's homestead rests on a quarter section near present-day Buhler, Kansas. Thank you for watching. We'll be right back after the break.
This hog is Hanover hoof for meal made from U.S. soybeans. Now, one hog isn't that impressive, but suppose we add another, and another, and another. Before long, you've got billions of hungry customers around the world all clamoring for the same thing. Our soybeans. Learn more about the billion-dollar appetite of animal agriculture at beyondtheelevator.com. Brought to you by America's soybean farmers and their checkoff.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
No matter where, no matter why, the Veterinary Health Center at Kansas State University is committed to providing quality patient care to animals and exceptional customer service to their owners. From routine checkups to emergency and specialty care. Our world-renowned specialists and experienced professionals are here to discover, to teach, and to heal.
Let us know.
How can I help?
How can we help?
Buying a car shouldn't be this hard. And at Brown Chevrolet Buick in Wamego, it isn't. It's actually awesome. Whether you want a new or used car or truck, Toby's team can make the deal. Even if you want to custom order a new car or truck, Toby's team can make the deal. See Toby's team at Brown Chevrolet Buick in Wamego. We're awesome.
This segment is brought to you by Central National Bank. Put our ag professionals to work for you.
Good morning and welcome to Farm Factor on AGam in Kansas. I'm your host, Conrad Kabus. With many of us using apps in everyday life, it only makes sense that farmers should use apps on their operation. Recently, AGam in Kansas caught up with Kansas State Agronomy at the Kansas Farm Bureau annual meeting in Manhattan to discuss new apps the department is looking at for farmers.
So my name is Dr. Ignacio Ampiti. I'm a cropping system, crop production specialist at Kansas State University in the Department of Agronomy. And I was here at the Kansas Farm Bureau annual convention meeting just to talk about apps in agriculture.
There are many categories K-State is looking to help farmers in, including economic, livestock, map, and calculator apps.
Well, basically at this moment we are exploring different apps from different sections. So we have a kind of different categories from identification apps that we call the ID apps, calculator apps. Basically, those are the apps that we can use for make calculations. We have some other apps that we call the crop production apps that we can use, for example, to make decisions in the field about crops like corn, sorghum, and soybeans. We have economic apps that basically we are using the ones that to take a look to the future price, the markets. We have some other apps that we call also the livestock apps. I mean, we have apps that we can use just to manage the cattle and then to take a look to some of the arrangements in the field and just to find the best price for corn prices and for cattle prices in around the state. And then the last one that you usually identify also is what basically the general knowledge app, which are the ones that basically we use every day. I mean, the weather apps or Google apps, any kind of different apps.
Thank you for watching. We'll be right back after the break.
American innovation is being driven in places you might not expect by people like Brent Hayek, an Oklahoma family farmer, who recently set a world land speed record in a Ford Super Duty pickup truck powered by renewable B20 biodiesel. Advanced performance is here, now, putting America on the fast track to more jobs and energy independence. Biodiesel, America's advanced biofuel.
Hey folks, Dr. Dan from Doc Talk. If you miss us on Monday morning, you can join us at 6:30 a.m. every Sunday morning on RFD TV. Doc Talk has a national following. We're sure glad that you joined us on Mondays, but if you miss us and you want to catch us out on a Sunday morning, get up at 6:30 a.m. and we'll be right there, RFD TV, 6:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, and I'll see you down the road.
This segment is brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff. Progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Good morning and welcome to Farm Factor on AGam in Kansas. I'm your host, Conrad Kabus. With many of us using apps in everyday life, it only makes sense that farmers should use apps on their operation. Take a look. Recently, AGam in Kansas caught up with Kansas State Agronomy at the Kansas Farm Bureau annual meeting in Manhattan to discuss new apps the department is looking at for farmers.
We are planning to make a revision of the first publication that we released this year around March on our e-updates of K-State Department of Agronomy. So we are planning to do a second one this Friday, the next coming Friday, on the second week on December 2014. The idea is trying to revise this content every 6 months to try to gain some kind of a fresh view about the new different apps that are coming into the field and for farmers.
K-State is working on an app that could help producers around the states in their grain sorghum operation to help determine how many grains are in crops' heads.
We are trying right now to work in a new app coming from K-State that we are developing here in my group. The idea of the app is trying to get some idea how to estimate sorghum yields. And so, I mean, when you are talking about corn and soybean, yield estimations are extremely easy in the sense that farmers can go out to the field and they can check the corn ears and they can just count the number of rows, number of kernels. In soybeans are very similar. They can just go to the field, they can count pods, and they can count how many plants. When you are looking into the same how to do estimations on sorghum yield in the field, that's meant to be more complicated. I mean, and the problem is just based on the idea of how you can determine how many grains you have in the head. And the heads usually they have around between 1,000 to 4,000 grains. So when you're looking to farmers to go out and do these estimations, it gets very complicated and very cumbersome in trying to get some idea of how many grains you have in the field.
K-State hopes to initiate this app in mid-August during heading time.
So the goal of the app will be to see if we can implement the app for the next coming growing season and trying to have a kind of a first version and see if we can do some estimations of sorghum yields in the field by around probably first week of August or maybe mid-August when sorghum is at the heading time. So with that idea, how this app can change what farmers are performing today and they were doing in the past, I think that this app can help farmers to decide what is the yield that is estimating from the field at that specific moment at kind of a heading time, and also will help farmers to decide if they need to continue with the crop, if they need to probably follow the crop until harvest, or if they can probably just take out the crop and introduce a new crop into the rotation. So it will probably help farmers to make management decisions of really seeing how much yield are they getting from that crop and how probably to follow up, I mean, as a consequent crop.
Tar Waters has what you need for all seasons for around the farm and home. Working, hunting, growing, feeding, snow removal, even fun for the kids. And a service department with experienced techs to help keep your equipment in top running condition. Tar Waters has a huge selection and the best prices. Tar Water Farm and Home, family owned and operated since 1978. They have what you need.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers, farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.
Hello friends, I'm Ernie Rodina.
And I'm Dawn Dawson with the Better Horses Radio Show.
For over 9 years, we've been bringing the Better Horses Radio Show to markets all across the Midwest. We talk about God, lots about horses.
We talk about cows, we talk about horse health, we talk to top trainers, and we even talk about Roy Rogers.
We're having a blast with Better Horses Radio Show and would love to take it to a market near you.
So visit our website at betterhorsesradio.com and let us or your local radio station know you'd like to hear it in your area.
The Better Horses Radio Show is unbelievable.
AGam in Kansas is brought to you in part by Sure Crop, liquid crop nutrition delivered right to your farm.
Good morning and welcome to Farm Factor on AGam in Kansas. I'm your host, Conrad Kabus. Farming policies is a hot topic in today's country, and with the internet, more farmers and ranchers are spreading the word of agriculture advocacy. Recently, the Kansas Farm Bureau had their annual meeting in Manhattan, Kansas. One of the speakers was Debbie Lyons-Blythe, who is big in the blog world in agriculture advocacy.
Hi, I'm Debbie Lyons-Blythe, and I'm from White City, Kansas. Here at the Kansas Farm Bureau Convention, so I was one of the speakers today. And I talk specifically about advocacy and connecting with consumers. My bottom line is that we've got to make that connection and not just preach to consumers, but kind of answer their questions and have a conversation with them.
Debbie began blogging in 2009 to tell stories of what happens on a ranch and to answer questions for people who don't live in rural areas. She believes that the conversations are changing and growing since she started.
So So back in 2009, when I first started blogging, I feel like that we were all about telling our story and just having a seat at the table and discussing specifically, you know, the things that we're doing today. But I think that now we've got to do a better job of actually listening to what consumers want to hear and listening to what their questions are. That's not the easiest thing to do, and I totally understand that. But I think that by paying attention to what the consumer wants to know about, we can actually do a much better job of advocating and connecting with them. And my bottom line is that we are consumers too. I'm looking for another word for consumers rather than just consumer. I don't know really what to say, what to call them. But if we keep them as consumers, then it's producers versus consumers. And I really don't want that to be a difference. I feel like that we both have the same concerns. We're worried about feeding our family safe food. We're worried about making sure it's nutritious. We're worried about the environment. You know, we have the same concerns. So I think we have to find a way to make that connection.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices. Tallgrass Commodities offers producers bulk commodities at a reasonable price with reliable service throughout the whole Midwest. To find out more about Tallgrass Commodities, visit tallgrass.us or call 785-494-8484.
Turn to a Central National Bank Ag Professional. You'll be in good company. They'll help you track expense lines, manage variable input costs, assess ground agreements, pick a crop protection plan. These times demand Ag Professionals. Central National Bank. You could profit from what they know. Ag operations run better on Central Time.
Central National Bank, money for life.
Member FDIC in your hometown since 1884.
This segment is brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff. Progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Good morning and welcome to Farm Factor on AGam in Kansas. I'm your host, Conrad Kabus. Farming policies is a hot topic in today's country, and with the internet, more farmers and ranchers are spreading the word of agriculture advocacy. Recently, the Kansas Farm Bureau had their annual meeting in Manhattan, Kansas. One of the speakers was Debbie Lyons-Blythe, who is big in the blog world in agriculture advocacy.
You know, the easiest way to get involved in advocacy is talk to somebody in a grocery store. One of my favorite things to do is swing by the meat case in a grocery store and just see what people are buying. You'll almost always see somebody just staring blankly into the meat case, wondering what they're going to do with that cut of meat. And I'll just ask them, so what are you going to do with that cut of meat? What kind of a meal are you serving? What's your recipe? And you know, sometimes they know what they're doing and they're fine with that information, and I don't go any further. But a lot of times they really don't know how to cook that specific cut of meat. They don't even know what it is. I've introduced people to the flat iron steak that they didn't even know what it was and how to cook it, and it's one of the best steaks that there is.
Debbie began blogging in 2009 to tell stories of what happens on a ranch and to answer questions for people who don't live in rural areas. She has found that there are many people involved in agriculture that are willing to answer questions, with many being farmers and rural Americans on blog sites and social media, helping to clear the air on farming policies and life.
So I think that starting with advocacy, it's just a matter of jumping in and doing it. Talking to people in a grocery store, talking to people specifically on Facebook, but you have to pay attention to Facebook. For the most part, everybody's friends on Facebook are just like them. And honestly, that's not advocacy if you're talking to them and specifically explaining what's going on your farm. Well, duh, it's going on their farm too. So we have to pay attention to who your audience is and try to truly curate your audience and get those followers and those friends that need to get the message. So that takes a lot of work, specifically on social media. And I think probably the best way to do that, to curate those followers, is to take part in some discussions, either Twitter chats or Facebook groups. If you join a group that is maybe a little bit outside of your comfort zone. The easiest thing is to join like a rural women or you know, an ag group to talk to. But that's not the ones we want to advocate to. Join a knitting group, join a marathon runners group, join a Twitter chat that talks specifically about Thanksgiving recipes. And those are going on out there. Those are available for us to take part in. And that just shows consumers that we are the same thing, that we have the same concerns and that we can talk about the same topics. And then, oh, by the way, I raise the beef that shows up in the grocery store. I raise the wheat that is in your breads. I think that's really important that we're able to make those connections.
Tar Waters has what you need for all seasons for around the farm and home. Working, hunting, growing, feeding, snow removal, even fun for the kids. And a service department with experienced techs to help keep your equipment in top running condition. Tar Waters has a huge selection and the best prices. Tar Water Farm and Home, family owned and operated since 1978. They have what you need. Soil is the life of a farm, and for 25 years, SureCrop Liquid Crop Nutrition has helped growers produce abundant quality crops while preserving and improving the soils they steward. SureCrop offers complete soil and plant analysis with cropping recommendations, delivery direct to your on-farm storage, and quality crop nutrition custom blended for your field. Choose SureCrop for the assurance of excellence for your soil. Call today or visit their website for more information.
This is the fast track to more jobs and America's energy independence. Advanced performance is here now. Biodiesel, America's advanced biofuel.
This segment is brought to you by Santa Fe Trail Meats in Overbrook, or visit us online at sftmeats.com.
Good morning and welcome to Farm Factor on AGam in Kansas. I'm your host, Conrad Kabus. Recently, Senator Pat Roberts was re-elected as the senator from Kansas. He'd like to take the following segment to thank Kansas farmers and ranchers for re-electing him.
We had a great election victory. I know that this was one of those elections that people really wondered about, more especially when the polls had us even on election day, and I win by 11 points and carry 102 out of 105 counties. What really helped me individually were so many individual farmers and ranchers who voted for me, who worked for me, who supported me, who knew me. At this dinner last year, there were about 800 of them, and I said, y'all know me, stay with me. We're a good partnership, and we might just have an opportunity, if Republicans take over the Senate, to be the next chairman of the Agriculture Committee. Well, look what happened. So tonight, it's a big thank you from me to the Farm Bureau, and for that matter to all of agriculture, the 14 farm organizations that backed me, and without question, I think it was their vote that put me over the top, which still shows you agriculture can be king when we want to be, and it will be a very humble duty. It will be my privilege to be the chairman of the Senate Agriculture Committee. Boy, do we have a lot of things where we need to get things done, more especially on overregulation and the protection of the individual farmer's property rights and how he or she farms, and plus the fact we're going to have some fun doing it. So I think I'll be the only person in history, if I come think about it, who's been ranking and now chairman in the Senate and in the House. That's a rare privilege indeed to represent such great people.
Thank you for watching today's episode of Farm Factor on AGam in Kansas. For more of Farm Factor, or if you want to view this segment again, visit us on www.agaminkansas.com, or you can like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter. So have a good day with good luck.
Closed captioning brought to you by Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff Progress, powered by Kansas farmers.